hello, hello, hello. It's Lisa Copeland, and welcome to my show, Reinventing the Art of Real Estate, where we're going to talk about how to buy, sell, invest, or potentially join our amazing team at the agency led by none other than HGTV star Tarek El Moussa. And I mean, we are crushing it right now. And I'm very excited about a guest, my dear guest, one of my business partners I'm bringing on today, Mr. David Cribbs. And David serves the St. Pete's Beach area in Tampa, Florida. And of course, many of you that'll be watching this show know David from the car business. So we've all been friends a super long time. And okay, so as promised, I'm going to bring on my guest, my dear friend, business partner, and fellow realtor, Mr. David Cribbs. David, hello.
Hey, Miss Lisa, how are you?
You know, if I was any better, I wouldn't be any better. How?
That's awesome.
So tell us what the weather's like in St. Pete's Beach, Florida. I see your pictures and I'm just dying. I can hardly stand it.
Oh my gosh, it's so amazing. You know, it's probably going to be about 90 degrees today, no rain, clear skies. And, you know, I'm so excited and just so fortunate because I did live in Apollo Beach, which is still in the Tampa Bay area, just a couple miles south of Tampa. And I sold my home recently, and I just moved this past weekend to St. Pete Beach, and I'm about 200 yards from the water, and it's just amazing.
Wow. I mean, everybody knows Florida is famous for the beaches. It looks like your state's opened up. You can kind of go and come as you please. And so it's exciting times in Florida. So tell us about selling your house and what that looked like. Tell us what the market is like in Florida.
The market's absolutely crazy in the Tampa Bay area. I mean, our supply and demand is a little bit off. It's definitely a seller's market right now. And the last few clients that I've worked with, I mean, we've struggled to actually get an offer approved because we're competing with so many offers, and we had to do it really, really quickly, and we had to make aggressive offers. So I've been fortunate to move a few right now. Obviously, it's a great time, and my home sold very, very quickly. I listed it just before COVID really hit hard, and we were on lockdown, and I took it temporarily off the market for about 30 days, put it back on, and within a week it was gone. And now it's just been exploding. I mean, any agent in the Tampa Bay area, and probably you know, it's not just unique to us. It's in major places all over the country right now. But it's really never been better, which is actually somewhat of a surprise. But it's a great thing for real estate agents.
Yeah, you know, David, we're experiencing the same thing in this market. So, you know, and I tell, you know, it's depending on who we're working with, right? Whether we're representing the buyer or we're representing the seller. So give me the advice that you give a buyer out there, because you and I both know that you've got to make, I love the word aggressive offers. And typically that means 5 to 10% over ask. And a lot of times, and I think I've been guilty of this and you have too, you know, we will set the price of a house so that we know that we will go into multiple offers. We set it, it's almost like chum in the water, right? To get a bidding, you know, oh, this is a great deal. But so, you know, buyer beware on that. And it's not a beware, it's a pricing strategy. It's completely legal. So talk to us as if you were representing somebody watching this show as their buyer's agent. How would you tell them and how to write an offer and how aggressive to be?
Yeah. So first of all, you're right on the money as far as the listing strategy, right? And I'll move quickly to the buyer side, but I just listed a home a couple of weeks ago, listed it for $249,900. It really just a diamond to find right now. And our first showing, we had an offer of $260,000 with no concessions. And so, I mean, obviously we went under contract. It has since closed, thank goodness. And you'll see that on your side here shortly, Lisa, as well, since I'm on your team.
I was
But
going to say, I just got paid. Yay.
yes, exactly. So, but to your point, when you're pricing these homes, and sometimes that's, by the way, a challenge in kind of sharing that with the seller, because they don't want to underprice their home. It's hard to get that just perfect for them, right? So
Right.
part of that is sharing the confidence of what's going to take place if we price this home right. And that's what happened there. And of course, now in hindsight, they're very pleased with that result. But from the buyer's perspective, when you're representing a buyer, I think the most important thing to do before you start looking at homes, before you start, just we have a tendency when we're serving others to kind of allow them to lead right from the beginning. We're trying to please them. We're trying to impress them. We're trying to get their business. And you can do all those things, but you really have to sit with the buyer, in my opinion, before you get started, and share with them what is taking place. And the idea here and how I approach it is, look, I want to set you up for success. Whether we find the home on the first day or whether it's 6 months from now, I want you to be in the strongest position that you can be when you find the home that you like, because most people know within a few minutes after entering the home if it's the one. So that being said, setting your buyer up for with strength. So one of those things would be, if you were to see a home today, the very first day, are you even in a position to make an offer?
Right.
Because that's my first question to the buyer. And because what I'll say is, look, if we go today and we look at a home and we get lucky, and the first one or the second one or today, you find the one that it's it. There's nothing more frustrating for you to find the one and then not be able to get it.
Exactly.
So let's position ourselves. Again, I'm in no rush. There's no pressure. I'll show you 100 homes. It doesn't matter to me. But we've got to be ready when we first begin to look in how to, position ourselves from a position of strength, so that if we are in a position where we're either competing for an offer or things like that, we have an advantage. And a couple of those things that I share with them is, again, going back to, are you prepared today to make an offer? I talk about, right now, there's not an agent in the world that will look at an offer without a minimum of a pre-qualification letter. But quite frankly, that's not even good enough now. If we're going to be competing for offers, we need to get that moved to some type of pre-approval status, right? So that's one thing that's going to position you. The other thing is just sharing what the market is, and then also allowing, having a conversation with your buyer about where they stand when it comes to the numbers. And so, for example, if they're pre-approved conventional and they're putting 5% down, okay, here's your 5%, here's your budget range. And now we're looking at, of course, closing costs on top of that. Where are you positioned there, so that we can, again, strategize and kind of tailor the offer for the way that it works best for you and for others. So I think setting those expectations up front is the number one thing when we get started with a buyer.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, one of the things I've even gone to, if I've got a buyer that's putting down 20, 30% or even paying cash, I even include the verification of funds letter with my offer, with the pre-approval letter, because how many deals have busted because people are like, well, I thought I was going to get it from my 401k and now they wouldn't let me, right? So sellers are in a highly charged, highly sensitive market, right? Nobody wants people going through their houses right now in a pandemic. Let's be real, right? So we have to give a lot of kudos to the sellers out there right now that are willing to put their homes on the market and are willing to, allow us to continue to stay in business. And so the more information we can give them, I also have, if it's a good circumstance, and this has won me more deals than it's lost me in a multiple bid situation, David, is I have them write a letter. to put that I put along with the bid. And it really isn't, or the contract, the offer, and it really isn't like, because I've gotten them on some of my listings. It's like they show the kids and then this, and I'm like, nah. But when I go and I show a house, I two of them that stand out in my head over the last 6 months, that my client was a veteran, and you go through someone's house, you learn a lot about somebody, right? And so the two sellers on two of these deals, they were vets. So, we included that story, the story of these vets' service, in the email, because I knew that that would be something. I didn't know, but I was pretty darn sure that you have served our country, and thank you for that. But people that have served their country, it's a brotherhood, it's a sisterhood. And so, when you're out there and you're a realtor, or if you're a seller, hide all that stuff. But when you're out there, you've got to look for clues. We always say success leaves clues, but you've got to look for clues in that house that ties the emotional tie between your client, the buyer, and what could potentially be the seller, right? I mean, I've done political stuff where I see something, I'm like, oh, good, this is going to work. Or if they're an animal lover, or, we had one, and my client had 4 dogs. Well, these people had dogs. And it's like, I'm a dog lover, da, da, da. And we got the house. Like I can go on and on about all the reasons that we've gotten the house before, but it's because we try to because there's already enough combativeness, right? When you're in a negotiation, but you want to have that emotional tie between your buyer and that seller.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I'm glad that you touched based on the letter thing, because that is, one more thing. And I think, as agents, and when we're representing someone and we're trying to get that house for them, we do need to look at anything that could give us a little bit of an edge, from the way that we set up the offer to, like, as you mentioned, Lisa, including every piece of information when it comes to the ability to, right? The ability to fund the deal, and then the ability to connect emotionally with that buyer or seller. You're absolutely right. So that's a great point. The letter is really, really a big deal.
It is. And I will tell you, it's not like it's the world's best kept secret, because you and I have both been listing agents. I've had a lot of listings. They don't last over a minute. But that being said, 50% of the agents will send in a letter, but I read the letter, and of course I have to show it to the seller. That's what we're bound to do. But I'm like, you missed it, bro. You missed that soul tie. You missed that tie, that emotional tie that you should have connected to your buyer and your seller. And right. So it's all about that too. Boy, old Mike Green with EXP is out there, and he is just talking about, he is engaged today. So hi, Mike Green. Nice. Love to know where you're from. You're one of our EXP agents. And David, are we really at $56 a share on EXP stock?
Yeah, insane. I mean, I just threw that up there, and you probably remember a post I shared a couple weeks ago. I know, it's amazing. And here's the crazy thing though, Lisa, and I posted this just because I think it really shows the power of what we have with EXP. But as you know, when you cap, you get that $16,000 of that you've paid in back in shares of stock at the current price. And
that is if you become an icon agent once you've capped.
Right. Once you cap and you become an icon agent, correct. Right. But for those who did that 3 years ago, Lisa, I posted a couple weeks ago when I think we're at $45 a share. Now we're $10 over that. But for those agents that a month ago when I posted it and we were at $45 a share, I looked back at exactly 3 years prior, and that stock price was around $6 a share. Now, when you're totally vested 3 years after they grant you that stock, and for those agents 3 years ago, they kind of had it in hold, right? They couldn't really do anything with it except for allow it to grow, and then it matured, right, 3 years later, and it was at $45. And I kind of did the math, and it was almost $250,000
in free money.
In free money. Can you imagine? I'm thinking about all the agents that became icons 3 years ago. And that was just, by the way, that was just 1 year of
Yeah.
icon status.
Yes.
Um,
Okay, well, Brian Hughes, our good friend and one of our teammates also, he says $58 a share right now, up 7.5% today alone.
Absolutely insane. I also posted yesterday feeling amused because I know other brokers that own their brokerages that are investing in EXP stock because they see what it's doing. It's pretty kind of
here in Austin. She wrote on mine. She's like, hey, I'm not an agent, but I invested in your stock and she's doubled her money. And I'm like, why are you not an agent with us? But hey, I digress. I want to talk about investing.
yes.
I want to talk about investing. There is no better time right now than to own real estate. There is no better time to invest in real estate. You know, the stock market will come and go, except for EXP stock, it's looking like, but the stock market will come and go. But what we know over time, good times, bad times, you look at any historical values or data at all, real estate will always, 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 always appreciate. It may appreciate, you know, it may go down a little bit this year, but the next year. But you look at someone who bought a house in 1945, okay? And today it's probably worth 20 times, no matter how big or small it was, it's probably worth 20 to 30 times more. And if that same person would have bought a stock, spent that 17 or 18,000, which is what it cost to buy a house back then, bought stock, that company may or may not be in business, right? You can never go wrong buying real estate. And tell us some of your great stories about people that you've helped, you know, get into investment properties, because I think that's where it's at. I have like 6 people right now I'm working on investor deals with, because I made a worksheet, which I'm happy to share with everybody. If you're out there, if you're an investor. And I made this worksheet. And when we lay it down to our clients between depreciation on your taxes, your tax write-off, the appreciation of the property, the rents, the historic low interest rates, you cannot not buy real estate right now.
Yeah, and there's so many areas right now. I know in the Tampa Bay area, it's probably similar where you're at, Lisa, where we have pockets of communities that are basically, that entire area is kind of just revamping. It's becoming a hot spot, and those homes that were built in the 50s and 60s are now being either renovated or torn down, and a new build, because the property location is just way more valuable than what's sitting on it. So it's just I would say, gosh, I think almost half of the homes in St. Pete, in the St. Pete area, about half of those homes are flips right now. I mean, I had a client just recently, we just closed on a brand new, in fact, this was a prime example. He just bought a brand new construction home, but it wasn't in a brand new construction neighborhood. It was in an older place, homes built in the 40s and 50s, and that area is changing. And we looked at pre-owned homes all over St. Pete before we landed on that. And I would say over half of the ones that we looked at, and we probably looked at 50 homes, over half of them were flips. So they were the people that were investing, renovating a little bit and flipping. And it's just a prime area, prime price point, $200,000 to $300,000. And so, yeah, there's just tons of opportunity. And those are flipping extremely fast too. I mean, they're going on the market, and a couple of days later they're gone. So yeah, prime opportunity. But I will share this, Lisa, an opportunity that a lot of people aren't aware of, even agents, and that is the leaseback opportunities on new model homes and new construction.
Ooh,
so how that works is many of the production builders in these typical new construction communities will build their model home, and as they become closer to finishing out the community, when they know, for example, that they're a year to 2 years away from finishing out the community, they will typically put that home up for sale. They don't really advertise it per se, but the new home sales consultants are aware of it. And when they get people that are interested and they really fall in love with the model home, but yet they have some time, or they just want an investment, they can purchase that home at the current price, and then the new home builder will then lease it back from them, and basically they're paying for the home the entire time they're in it over the next year or two while it appreciates in a brand new neighborhood.
Yeah.
And then that gives the owner the opportunity at the end of that lease. They've got the most beautiful home in there because it's a model home. It gives them the opportunity to decide if they want to move in and actually keep it for themselves, or just go ahead and sell it at that increased rate. So that's a pretty cool opportunity. And some of them are, you have to go to look at each one to see what the details are, but some of them are complete no-brainers. So that's a great opportunity as well if you're an investor or an agent to kind of check out.
Yeah, no, I love that you said that. And another thing that we're going to talk about, and I'm going to bring him on my show in the next few weeks, Michael Lecter, under contract. Look at you. I love it. Is, setting up syndicates, right? And getting involved in syndicates, meaning that you have 4 or 5 people come together, you pool your funds and you buy properties. And, there are laws in syndication also, which we're going to be talking about. And of course, our business partner and the head of our organization, Tarek El Moussa from HGTV, the King Flipper himself. Have you watched season 2 of Flipping 101?
I haven't. I've only watched season 1 so far.
Oh my God, it's so good. And, and you and I have both spent many years in the car business, and money is made and lost, people, made and lost at the acquisition of anything, whether it's the acquisition of a car, yes, if you're a dealership, right? And it's what you buy it for. Like, you can never put enough money in a deal to bring it to value. It's what you acquire it for. Well, nothing is more true than in real estate. And so when Tarek schools these people, these investors that he's mentoring, and he's like, you paid this much too much for the house. And that's where it becomes critical, if you want to get in the flip business, to work with me or with David or anybody that, in our parts of the country that have been trained by the best of the best, the #1 flipper in the world. Like, we know what acquisition should be on any given property. And then of course, we have the ability to talk to Tarek or talk to his team and find out, making sure that we are giving people the advice that they need. But right, David, because how many people go in and like, oh, I'm going to flip this thing, and then they pay way too much for it. And so you're already underwater going into the deal.
Yeah, here's the thing. And here's the thing that especially amateur investors or flippers fail to recognize. And it's the very thing that you just said. And I'm so glad that you brought it up. You make your money when you buy, not when you sell.
Amen.
So true investors get more excited when they purchase than when they sell, which is typically the opposite with the amateur investor.
Exactly, because they understand the market. And something else we offer that's out there, and and David, I want to get your thoughts on this, is, Tarek told us what was a couple of weeks ago that, and I've done the research, 30% of American households either buying or leasing are currently in a forbearance. Now, some of these forbearances are just because people are like, oh, I don't want to make my payment for 3 months, which was really stupid. So there's going to be repercussions from that. But about 15 to 20% are people who are really, they're struggling. They've lost their jobs, they've been furloughed, their job has been eliminated, which we've seen a lot of that. And so, they're, but they have equity in their house and they're almost paralyzed, frozen. And we have a program called Express Agent that we have institutional buyers and then also Tarek's got his own program. So I always keep Tarek honest, and I shop our iBuyers against the Tarek. And anyways, but we have the ability to go in and pay cash for anybody's house in 90 days. Listen to me, in 3 days. We can get you in, we can get you out, we can save your equity. And so that's just, and that's going to be the topic of some future shows, is about what to do if you are in forbearance, putting your head under the cover and hoping that, because even if you're in forbearance, even if they tack your payments on to the end, your taxes are not. So your taxes are still due. And if you're in forbearance, unless you bring the forbearance current, and I know this because we own a mortgage company, you cannot refinance the house. Because the mortgage company is like, no, you've already screamed uncle on us. So, it's tricky. It's a tricky bag of balls. And that's why people need us, David, us and other realtors like our good friend, Mike Green, and our good friend, Brian Hughes, all EXP agents anywhere around the country, right? You need a real estate professional to help guide you through these murky waters.
Yeah, absolutely. No question. And the opportunity is right now, especially for those who are with EXP. And I know, Lisa, you've already gone through the certification with the Home Express, and it's my plan to do that next week. I've procrastinated, but But right now is the time to do it. Like if you're with EXP, because yes, there is that opportunity and those forbearances. And the funny thing is, those who are in it know where they're at for the most part, but the rest of the world, you might get lucky and hear a news report or something like that, but the rest of the world, that's not really been exposed yet until, months down the road when this thing comes to a head and they're out of time on those forbearances. Then there's going to be a lot of opportunity. So, getting in there and finding out about how that works for you. And it's a great opportunity, by the way, for any agent who's considering EXP. I would say it's one of the first things that you want to move toward, because you're going to have additional opportunities that others don't, quite frankly.
Well, my good friend and EXP agent, Adam Frank, he is the king of KV Core and of our CRM. He's helped me immensely. It's easy. Awesome. I knocked out my express offers training in a single day. I think he's trying to tell you something, David.
Yeah, I think so too. That's good to hear. So
yeah.
I'm going to knock it out. I'm going to knock it out next week. I'm calendaring it as soon as we finish up here later today. So thank you so much, Adam, for that.
Yeah, and Mike says he has to go because it is time for him to jump into EXP world. So, wrapping this whole thing up, what is the two pieces of advice you would give a seller today based on today's market in your market in St. Pete Beach? God, that's almost a tongue twister. St. Pete Beach in Florida, which is in that whole Tampa, which Tampa's every bit as hot as Austin, Texas. I know that. I have a client right now. In fact, he's buying one in Austin. He's overseas, and he goes, on my next investment, I want to buy in Tampa. And I said, I have the agent for you. So when that happens, he's coming your way.
Thank you so much.
Yes, of course. And which is what we also do, right? We're full of referrals. But tell me, what advice would you give a seller right now to lessen the stress of selling a house during a pandemic and to maximize profits besides hire you? That's obvious.
Well, the first, yeah. I mean, that's obvious, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the first thing is to find a great agent, even if it's not me. 100% use an agent, right? Don't do a for sale by owner. That'd be my best advice. And if you ever talk to anyone that's considering that, one of the things I would share is that something that I say to anyone who's in that position is, hey, promise me you'll use an agent, whether it's me or not. So you take yourself out of what's in it for me, and that lends credibility to the fact that they really should consider a real estate agent, obviously. But beyond that, so beyond that, I would say that right now, obviously, pricing strategy is huge. Getting that pricing right without sacrificing a dollar is big. And then that's where it goes back once again to having a great agent. But most importantly, we know that homes are bringing great money right now. They're bringing all the money. So I think I'm more concerned about, and I've seen some examples of this recently, about appraisals. And the one thing I want to say about appraisals right now is that whether or not you're supposed to or not as an agent, you can impact an appraisal. You can have an impact on an appraisal. Do not let that go on autopilot. You will cost your seller tons of money, and you will disappoint everyone in the transaction. So I just had this occur both ways. I had a home that I sold in Lakeland, Florida, just outside of Tampa, between Tampa and Orlando. It was around a $500,000 home, very tough price point in that particular community. And the comps were not favorable, and we were flying high. And I was very afraid because we got all the money for it. The home sat on the market for 6 months. The listing expired. I knew the owner. As soon as it expired, they reached out to me. They only had one showing in 6 months.
Ooh.
I had 40. I had 40 showings in 3 weeks, and we had an offer. And our offer, by the way, was above the price that they sat on the market for 6 months with. We raised it another 10 grand and got the deal. But here's the thing is that I was still scared to death because I'm thinking this could come in $30,000-$40,000 light. And so what I did was I went and scheduled myself to meet the appraiser, and not only have just dialogue, but also one of the things I've learned is that they will typically use data that you provide as long as it qualifies. So it saves them time instead of them, because we know they're overwhelmed. So instead of them going back and doing the research and finding the closest ones, when you give them and they qualify, now you can control some of the most favorable things. And then I also ask permission. I'm very humble, by the way, when I speak to an appraiser, because you don't want to go in, you want to approach that in a very savvy way, right? So I go in, I welcome to the home. I ask them if they would allow me to share some of the things that might make a difference for them and save them some time. And I offer that to them if they'd like to see it. I've never had one say no. And so the point is that we broke a record by far in that neighborhood, and now it becomes the new comp. So that we did appraise for full amount.
Thank you.
Exactly. I had agents calling me while it was pending going, hey, you're pending. Have you appraised yet? I'm like, no, I'm nervous too. But the moment I did, they were all high-fiving me because they were like, oh, thank you, because you just made a difference in my deal, right? So so that's one thing as a seller's agent. Now let's flip the script. I was a buyer's agent and recently under contract in with a home, and it was a little bit unique as well. And it had fallen through with a previous buyer because of the financing, but it had appraised. I didn't know what it had appraised for. They didn't share that with us at the, yet. But we went under contract, and we went under contract at 320. The asking price was 315. We made the aggressive offer. We got the home. And I felt great, by the way, about it at 320 in this market. So fast forward to the appraisal. The appraisal comes back at 275. So we're way away on the appraisal. Now, as the buyer's agent, I kind of left it up to the seller's agent to, make sure that the home was going to appraise. I felt very comfortable, by the way, with the comps and things like that. However, when it appraised for 275, then the agent shared with me that it had previously appraised just last month for 314 when they were in the previous deal.
Wow.
I did offer my buyers an opportunity to dispute the appraisal and try to share some new data. But they were spooked a little bit. We are now under contract on another home. So thankfully I didn't lose a deal. But my point is that, and you could argue that maybe I should have, kind of helped in the appraisal process, but I felt as the buyer's agent, we were at 320, we were $5,000 over. What if the appraisal had come back at 314 or 315? And that would have given me maybe $5,000 of negotiating power to get them a little bit better deal. But as the seller's agent, I couldn't believe, even if they had already appraised before, that they weren't out there trying to push that appraisal as high as possible when they knew they were flying high.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I had one like that. Now, Texas, we're really these appraisers will not talk to us. So I have two tricks. One, I take the lockbox off. So then the appraiser has to call me to enter the house. So there's that. So
there you go.
And then I leave an appraisal packet with the information you said, and I leave it on like the island in the kitchen with a note for appraiser. Right. And in that, I'll have the updates to the house. I have this, which I also put into MLS. I have my sellers go out, I realize you put $1 million worth of tile that's got about $1 worth of value, but let's tell people that, right? Because we have to give them ammunition. So, there's lots of ways to skin the cat to get these appraisals. So you guys sound like you're a little luckier in Florida, man. These appraisers, we're not supposed to talk to them. So, but if they can't get in the house, I have to open it. So there's always
there's the difference.
Mm-hmm.
There's the difference, though. There's the difference, Lisa, and there's the difference in someone who's savvy enough to go, hey, here's a way. I can find a way to kind of have an edge here, and that's what you do. And I think part of that maybe comes from our background in the car business. When you send over a car deal, right, you got to book it out and find every little thing you can to justify that value to get that financing done. So So
Exactly.
yeah, but you brought up a great point, and I might, well, not might, I'll adopt that as well if I'm ever in fear that I can't
You have
connect with them,
to get in, or he or she has to get in. So if you're the only one there with the key, you
right?
you at least get the, oh, by the way, the appraisal packet is sitting on the island of the kitchen. That's about all they let me say, other than hello, great, whatever. And by the way, I've found some comps for you, and I've got a whole list of our upgrades and our improvements, and I've got this and that, and I found a couple FISBOs. Because like if a for sale by owner sells in the neighborhood, the appraiser does not have access to that information. So I've gone and knocked on people's doors, right? But in this market, you've got to have an agent who is willing to do whatever it takes to maximize. So, David, as we wrap this up, you are coming to Austin, Texas. David is.
I am coming.
And coming where?
Yes. I am coming to Austin, Texas.
In January.
We were originally looking at just a couple weeks from now, but with COVID and the restrictions and still things kind of temperature wise, we're pushing that to January so that we can ensure that we have a really hugely successful event. So yeah, absolutely. Can't wait, by the way.
So if you're a real estate agent and you're watching this, Austin, Texas in January, David puts on an incredible event, mega open house. He teaches agents how to work with new home builders. Hey, one of our teammates and good friend, Brian Hughes, before we wrap, he says, what does the talk with your clients, the buyers, sound like when the home appraises for way under? I have a situation with one right now. I'll answer first, and then I'll let you answer, David. Brian, what I tell my buyers is, we're going to go back to the negotiating table. Because your only other choice, depending on what kind of loan it is like if the people love the house and they have to have it, so if you're $5,000-$10,000 off, sometimes people are willing to come with the cash. Or, the seller gets spooked and then they realize that they have to negotiate down. So, I try to get the temperature of how much my client really wants that house. Because in the end of the day, what is $5,000 or $10,000 more dollars? Because you're going to make that up in 6 months in equity anyways, or the appraiser might be way off base. So find out, number one, what is the temperature of the client? Do they love the house no matter what? And are they willing to put the additional cash with it? And if that happens, sometimes you can go back to the seller and go, look, I'll meet you in the middle. Like, this is me representing the buyer. Look, we appraised for $250. We have, we offered you $300. My buyers love the house. We understand. We'll meet you in the middle at $275, and we'll either adjust our financing, which typically means you have to put the cash up. That's the deal. So it's that. And so always trying to meet in the middle. David, what would you say?
So I'd say the first thing is starting the conversation out with the good news, right? The good news is this whole entire No, the good news is the whole entire process is contingent on the appraisal, right? So we have a contingency here. So when we entered this contract, we had a safety net. So that's the good news. We had a safety net. And at this point, because the appraisal is short, we know two things, or one of two things. Either the appraiser was off for some reason, and we can look at that and determine if that might be the case, because that does happen occasionally. Or we find out that that this is really closer to the actual market value based on all the data and the facts and whatever, and that's why we hire these amazing appraisers. And by the way, so much of their process now, from what I understand, is software driven. So it's almost like they put in the data. There's not a whole lot of opinion, if you will, once they enter everything that they have informationally. So, but the other thing that I would share, and this is something that's important for agents to know, I feel, is that, and I'm assuming it's the same throughout the U.S. because it's a government-backed thing. I know here in Florida it is, but if you're talking about a government-backed loan like an FHA or VA, you're kind of stuck with that appraisal unless you can dispute it and show evidence that needs to be looked at again, which is rarely overturned.
To the next buyer.
Right. So and that stays, from what I understand, for 6 months with a property when you have a government appraisal. But interestingly enough, if you are conventional, right, and many home buyers are, if you're conventional and you do a home loan and the appraisal comes back way off for some reason, and you really do believe that this is a mistake, And I've had this occur, and the mortgage broker would changed lenders. New appraiser came out from another lender, and it appraised. I had one, it was actually my very first retail deal after I left the builder, and it was a $180,000 home. It appraised for 140. We looked back. Yeah, we looked back. The comps were not even close, and just bad comps. We pulled some comps to kind of figure that out, obviously, and we switched lenders. The next lender came out, appraised for full price. So you do have that opportunity, possibly, if you are going conventional, if you have the luxury of being able to change lenders. But those are some of the things that I would share when it comes to the appraisal.
A realtor, they know these things. They know what to do. We know how to pivot. We know how to change lenders. We know what to do. Excuse me, which is why you should never go it alone. All right, David, I cannot thank you enough for your time. You guys,
my pleasure.
Along the bottom, it's Get Lisa's free book on real estate at lisacopeland.book.live. I've got the hard copy here. This is a very nice digital copy. So if you're interested on how to sell your house for more money and fast, get your free copy of the book. If you're local, I will send one to you, a physical copy. You just fill out the form. And if you're not local, then just go ahead and get the digital copy. It's pretty cool. It's like a magazine. So anyways, David, my friend, continued success. How can, if people are in your area that are watching this right now, how can they get a hold of you? What's your website? How do they buy a house from Dave Cribbs?
So thank you so much. So obviously you can find me on Facebook under my name, David Cribbs. Also, David Cribbs Realtor is a Facebook page that I have, along with my phone number, 813-526-2861. You can reach out at any time. And for those agents who are on board, who are watching, I would really encourage you to tune in to our video podcast on Facebook. You can find it on Facebook under the Under Contract Live page.
Oh, we didn't talk about that. I feel bad.
So, no worries. But essentially, that podcast is for realtors by realtors. So everyone is welcome.
As your co-host, the beautiful Lisa Marie Kennedy is your co-host.
Yeah, she's actually Dr. Lisa Marie Kennedy, and author of Selling the $1 Million Model. Make sure you get that book. We give some of those away on the show as well, but every Wednesday at noon Eastern time. So it's 11 o'clock Central. Tune in to, and all you got to do is like our page, Under Contract Live page, and you can tune in.
I'm putting this in the show notes right here, Under Contract Live Facebook page. All right, Dave, it's always a pleasure. I'm excited. We'll have you back closer to your trip to Austin, Texas, where you are going to absolutely set this place on fire and teach all the agents how to do mega open houses and how to negotiate new construction. So we appreciate you. It's a pleasure and an honor to work with you, my dear friend. And for everybody out there, get your free book from me, lisacopeland.book.live. If you are in the Central Texas area, if you fill it out, I will send you a book. Otherwise, you can also get it on my website. So, all right, everybody, have a great day. Make it a prosperous weekend, and we'll see you soon.